On today's show, Mitch Love on a leave from the Capitals due to an NHL investigation, and the latest with the informal skates with the Caps. Next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the past 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called the Capitals Minute Cast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the latest at the Capitals informal skates at MedStar Ice Complex. It is a full house. Jacob Chychrun in the house. What's the latest with the Caps? I'll talk about that a bit later. The Capitals have a new jersey going into this season. What does it look like? But just to get it going here, Mitch Love on leave due to an NHL investigation. And I'm going to be honest with you guys here. I did not see this coming. I mean, why would I, right? It kind of came out of left field. But, it's interesting that this summer, there were vacancies, there were openings, head coaching jobs. We saw one in Boston. There was one with the Penguins. There was one with the Kraken. And if you take a look at Mitch Love, his name was linked, or he was going to interview for some of those jobs. And at the end of the summer, as we were getting close, I'm like, Mitch Love, he didn't land a head coaching job anywhere. It just didn't make sense to me. So now I think certain things are coming into focus based on the fact that there is this NHL investigation. So let's dive into that in the first segment of today's show. And it's not the stuff I want to talk about. It really isn't. But he is an assistant coach with the Capitals, right? So I think it is something to dig into here. So let's talk about it. Mitch Love, the assistant of the Capitals, has been placed on leave from the Capitals due to an NHL investigation. Now, the NHL is investigating allegations that came in about his personal conduct. And that's all we know right now. I've had a fair amount of questions from people on Twitter, on YouTube, different sources saying, Dan, what do you know about Mitch Love? And I know what you know. What was released by Capitals PR. There's no leaks that I'm familiar with. And honestly, I don't really care to know too much if it's of a personal nature. If it comes out, it'll come out. But that is what we know something right now. And this isn't something the team takes lightly. And it'll be interesting when all is revealed what the repercussions. If it is something that, was taken care of, then he can resume his time with the Capitals. But if not, we're talking about a guy whose trajectory was going up, 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 that he was working his way through the ranks before he was with the Capitals. He was involved with the Calgary Flames organization, their AHL affiliate. The Wranglers came here, has done a good job under Spencer Carberry running the defense, and it just seemed like his arrow was pointing up. So obviously, not what he was looking for. And, as fans, I guess I'm kind of scratching my head and surprised by the whole thing. Now, the league itself got a letter over the summer outlining the concerns, and the Capitals acted accordingly. Now, here's the part that makes it even a bit messier. At the same time those allegations were surfacing, like I said, Mitch Love's name was out there as one of the hot candidates for open NHL head coaching jobs. And you saw the different spots get filled around the NHL. And at the end, Mitch Love did not have a job. It just didn't make sense. And he was involved. He was in the running to land one of these jobs. We're talking about real interviews. Teams like Seattle, Pittsburgh, even Boston. And at the end of the day, those teams chose to go with different candidates. So this is a guy that other teams were looking at for a next step up, that you see that he has done a good job at each rung up that he has climbed in his coaching career. And instead, here we are talking about him off the ice, away from the team, waiting an investigation to play out. Ugh, I guess is the only way we can look at it. Not what we're looking for. And the timing, well, it could not be worse, because here's the thing. Training camp starts officially on Thursday. So you know that the responsibilities that Mitch Love took care of are going to have to get split up. And it's kind of just an interim thing. We're going to kind of wait to see how this all plays out, if Spencer takes on more or different coaches take on that role in his absence, and how it all plays out. Players are walking into the rink ready to get going, and one of their assistant coaches isn't there. It's one of the things that I think makes the players feel like something off, because something is off. And I think that it's important for the players to compartmentalize this whole situation, as difficult as it may be, and just concentrate on getting ready for the season. And but what we know is that means extra weight for Spencer Carberry. We know that Carberry has done a great job with the Capitals so far, and now just puts a little bit more on his plate, and potentially the coaches around him. He's establishing the system. He's still building trust with the players, and now one of his assistants is pulled off the bench. The one thing I was thinking about is it has to be something that Spencer had to have at least been thinking about anyway, because in the event that he did, land a job somewhere else, that there had to be some candidates, and they're not going to hire anyone just because it's a leave. But you got to think, if it's worse, or as bad, I guess you could say, as it might appear here, being on a leave, an NHL investigation, kind of scary stuff there, that they might need to plan for something like that. So what does that mean in real terms? Well, Mitch Love had specific duties. As you know, he worked with the defense. He had his hand on special team strategy. He was part of the in-game decision-making progress. And that's a lot to to split apart here, right? That it's not just, one guy is going to pick up the slack for all of those kind of things. That it is definitely not ideal. Now, maybe Scott Allen takes more responsibility. Maybe Carberry himself steps into more direct defensive instruction. Or maybe the staff just spreads it around evenly. It's really kind of too early to tell here, but it's not nothing. And the players notice. They see who's running drills. They see who's speaking up in meetings. They know when a voice is missing. And you're going to notice, that Mitch Love isn't there. Hey, where is he at? And I think as fans and, observers of the team, it might mean more to us. I think that the Capitals have it covered. I think that, just like if someone was sick or there was a family emergency, I guess depending on how long the leave is, you always have to have kind of plans, contingency plans, I guess you could say. So the question becomes, how much of a distraction is this? Now, let's be clear here. We don't know the outcome yet. And I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to throw it at the wall and guess, because we don't know. It's of personal nature. And in due time, when we do find out, if it is something that I can talk about, this is a family-friendly podcast at the end of the day, I will let you know about it. But what we know right now is we don't know a lot. The league hasn't said anything about timelines or findings, so this could be something that gets resolved quickly, or it could take weeks or potentially months. And during that time, the Capitals have to keep it moving. The 25-26 season is coming with or without Mitch Love. So keep your eyes on the leadership core. It's going to be, Ovechkin, Karlsson, Wilson. Those are the guys to set the tone, to say, let's not pay attention to this. And, this is no strange occurrence around the NHL. There has been, internal investigations, whether it's based on players' activity, those kind of things, that it is something you kind of just have to brush off there. So when we talk about the leadership, we talk about Ovi, Karlsson, Wilson, these kind of guys. They're the ones to make sure that the locker room stays focused while the front office and the league are handling their end of the things, because they cannot do anything about it. If they keep the group locked in, the distraction stays smaller. And that's what they can hope for, is in a best case scenario, it is something that takes care of itself sooner than later. If it lingers, though, it could impact the camp rhythm, game prep, even special teams execution once the season starts. But it won't get to that. The closer we get to the season, there's going to have to be someone that's put in place that's already, within the organization. They're not going to hire someone else to fill that void since it is a leave, and unless, in fact, there is some sort of dismissal that takes place. But like I said, what we know right now is that he is on leave, and it's of a personal nature. And some of the questions I think that are being answered, why he didn't land a coaching job around the NHL, because I think his resume speaks for itself. And it seems like this has been in the air around the NHL for quite some time, that we hope that it resolves itself sooner than later. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about the latest at the informal skates at MedStar Ice Complex. It is a full house now. What have we learned thus far? I'll discuss straight ahead. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet: player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So say you're watching the Commanders or say the Ravens, you already have vested interest. But say you want interest in all of the games, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, they got that much more exciting. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays if you need it. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in the second segment of today's show, things are getting real close to kicking it off here as we know the start of the preseason. The camp starts on Thursday. That's when things get real. And let's talk about the stuff that's going on at MedStar, because there is a lot of stuff going on. First of all, I'll start off by saying that Monday today, the big news was that Jacob Chychrun joined the group today, and it's a full camp now, or it's a full house. The roster is at MedStar. They are practicing, and it's going to be interesting. The battles that I've spoke about here recently shaking out, and let me tell you, the list is impressive. Strome, Beauvillier, Wilson, Dubois. There's a lot of players. You know the roster. They are at MedStar Ice Complex right now, and in net, Lindgren and Thompson. That is basically your NHL roster right there. And it's a good thing. I mean, the camp doesn't start till Thursday, and already you have the players in place in earnest, trying to hit the ground running and just get ready for the prep for the 25-26 season. And altogether, already competing, already sharpening each other's skills, getting ready for the season. You can see it in the video and scrimmages. Some guys really stood out. Here recently, Anthony Beauvillier, with the player that we know the Capitals signed, had an extension here, a part of the big picture for the Capitals, scored a couple of goals for Team Red. Ethan Frank, kind of one of those bubble players, showed off his wheels, which is, nothing too new for him, as he has been the fastest skater in the AHL. And Sonny Milano looked dangerous offensively, slipping into open spots. So when we talk about those players, Anthony Beauvillier, he's going to be on the team. There's no question marks there. But when you talk about Ethan Frank, you talk about Sonny Milano, you're going to see the best version of those players, because they are fighting in earnest to find a spot on this roster. And LaPierre, who we saw in the mix as well, another player that's going to have to bring it, a player that we know signed that bridge deal there, was playing primarily on the wing. Are the Capitals tipping their hand, or is this really too early of a take? Yeah, I think that's probably the case, but he looked confident on the wing. And I think at the end of the day, LaPierre is going to be happy if he finds a spot on the Capitals, whether it's at center or at wing. And another player I've talked about here quite often, another player that is fighting for a roster spot on the big team is Ivan Miroshnichenko. He had a slick move in tight and buried the winner for Team White. So things are kicking in, and it is fun. It's an exciting time to see things taking shape. Now, those are the kind of plays you want to see from young guys who are trying to cement a bigger role. Miroshnichenko, we're talking about Ethan Frank, these kind of guys. They really are going to have to bring it. And then let's talk about the rookie camp. The team did something a little different. They sent the kids down to Annapolis for an obstacle course at the Naval Academy. I got to have a little bit of fun, work on, on some skills together, some team bonding. It was a fun thing to hear about at the Annapolis obstacle course there. This wasn't just a fun and games week for the Capitals young players. There was serious work. Ryan Leonard said he couldn't feel his arms after he was done. He also talked about the ropes and some of the players that he realized that you're supposed to use more of your feet clenching around the rope than your arms, that he wasn't able to grasp that fully right away. But that some of those players are really demonstrating their strength. And what I saw from Ryan Leonard at camp is he is already looking jacked. The guy has put on some weight and he looks like he is in shape. And I think going to be a dynamic player for the Capitals this season. Younger Capitals prospect Ryan Chesley won the whole thing, finishing in about a minute and 10 seconds. That's climbing ropes, that's balancing, that's hanging bars, that's digging deep when your muscles are burning. And that matters because it shows who pushes through. And it's like those strength and conditioning tests that the players have, where they skate from line to line, back and forth, working on conditioning, that it's all a part of that. It's about, how strong can you be and how can you work together in a unit. It talks about and it proves a lot who's competitive, who hates to lose, and that tells about character, who's willing to push through. And like I said, it builds bond together for these young players. The guys sweat together, they struggle together. That translates when they're on the ice later this week. Some friendly competition to prove who is the best. And even if you're not the best, it maybe sets the bar higher for you to say, that's where I need to be to get that high. Now, let's spot a couple players here. Leon Mugli, second-round pick from Switzerland. He played hockey with EV Zug. Last year, at the end of the season, he got 2 games in for Hershey. Now he's saying straight up that he wants to stay in North America full time. That's his mindset. No bouncing back and forth. He wants to get involved in pro hockey with the Capitals. He wants to be here, and it seems like he is ready to earn steady minutes in Hershey. The Capitals, right? We know that's going to be an exciting young team right down for Hershey there. With the American League team, the Hershey Bears, excitement. A lot of young players. There's some veterans added in there. So almost as exciting as Capitals hockey is going to be Hershey Bears hockey. Some really, really great players. But when you take a look at it, if you add him to the mix, it is fixing to be a truly dynamic lineup. And if he adjusts well to the North American game, he's a legit call-up option if needed. And then there's Cam Allen, as we know, who has had a bit of a rough go of it, some personal issues as well. And, he has paid his restitution. He has done his time, if you will, that we have to, put that in the past and let him concentrate on what is next in his career. Because, when you take a look at Cam Allen, his story is a bit of a complicated one. He had a strong year in London at the OHL. But like I said, the off-ice activity, the DUI arrest in February, that was difficult for him. He pled guilty, community service, mandatory counseling, and he was suspended for a chunk of the season. So, like I say, we need to be willing to move on. It seems like he's in a better place. He has said that he is in a better place mentally, that it was definitely a setback for him, right? To go through all of that. But I think that he is in a better spot now. Of course, it could have gone worse than it was, and I'm sure that he's fully aware of that, but it seems like he is in the right headspace now. And, if things had gone poorly for him, that could derail a young player. You've seen this before. It's nothing new around the NHL. Other players getting involved in personal stuff they shouldn't have gotten involved in. Sometimes charges are brought up on that. Some young promising players' careers are cut short due to some poor judgment, shall we say. But he's saying the right things now, Cam Allen, that he's focused, that he's taking accountability. He's not trying to shift blame, that he knows he made a mistake, that he's working on his mental game as much as his physical one. And it's got to be a tough one. We all make mistakes in life. So to say, hey, you made a mistake, don't try to absolve yourself from anything. Maybe that is worse than what you've had in your life. And maybe, you've had worse in your life. But I think that we need to, practice forgiveness for these kind of guys, right? Or be willing to look past because they've tried to make right what they've done wrong in their life. And he's at rookie camp trying to prove he belongs. Maybe he starts in Hershey, but if he's sharp, if he's consistent, he could climb. So the takeaway from all of this is the competition at camp is alive with these young players, whether it's at the Naval Academy or the two players that I highlighted that are looking for a bigger role within the Capitals organization. It is an exciting time. The vets are already battling at these informal scrimmages. The rookies are being tested both physically and mentally, and it's all a part of ramping up for the 25-26 season to hit the ground running, to not settle for second best, right? That my goal for the Capitals last season was to be in the Stanley Cup final. A lofty goal, right? That there's 32 teams and to be the last two. But I don't want to say that I've lowered the bar. I'm just accepting the fact that the Capitals made it to the second round, being happy about it. But that is where we're at. Now, my goal is for them to even elevate themselves and go further. I think the above all end all, of course, is to win a Stanley Cup. This crew doesn't have what it takes. A team that is leaning into the youth, which I've highlighted in this episode, with the core intact, Ovechkin, Wilson, Carlson, these kind of guys, it is going to be an exciting team to watch. That much I know for sure. And I will have you guys covered the entire way on Locked on Capitals. All right, so coming up here after the break, the Capitals have a new home jersey. What's the latest? I'll break it all down straight ahead. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast, easy? Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Now listen, I do get involved in some of the hiring, the firing, the HR activity at my job. Sometimes you got people handling it, handing in paper applications. It can be so confusing. That is why we turn to Indeed. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So in the final segment of today's show, we're talking about some exciting news. The Screaming Eagle jersey returns, and it's even better this time, if you can believe it. So let's finish this show on a lighter note, as it has been kind of heavy. It started off heavy, so let's end this whole thing on a lighter, happier note. And I'm talking about a piece of clothing. I'm talking about a jersey. And the Capitals are bringing back the Screaming Eagle as their new third jersey. But there's more. Do you want more? I got more for you. This time it's red, white, and blue. And let me tell you something. It looks amazing. And the Capitals need to do something with their home jerseys here, because Jay Fresh, they had a poll out and they voted the Capitals home jersey as the worst home jersey in the entire NHL. Now, listen, I have the jersey myself here, and I think it looks good, but maybe a little dated, right? I mean, it is the same jersey that they've had at home for quite some time. And the thing that I've noticed the last couple seasons or so is that they're using the alternate third jerseys more and more often because they got to kind of know, right? They know that, and it's not just the J Fresh one out there. There's different ones out there as well, which have spoke about how ugly these jerseys are. Again, maybe I'm wearing Capitals colored glasses and I don't see it. I will give you, it looks a little bit dated, but the Capitals to me looks pretty good. You got to think someone inside the Capitals organization is ready to unveil the new regular home jersey and kind of just, put the Rock the Red jersey, if you will, in the back of the closet for now. But instead of the old black and bronze look, you get the patriotic colors that tie right back into DC. And if you haven't seen them, it is on Capitals social medias, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube, wherever you are online socially. It looks amazing. It's sharp, it's bold, and it's definitely going to get people talking. This is a third jersey, so it's not going to be every time they're at home. They'll debut it on October 17th against the Wild, and they'll wear it 15 times this season. I like it. It looks good. And if I can get it in under budget, around, Christmas time or something, but it's my luck. I always wait too long and then they're out of them. But in any event, I am going to do my due diligence to try to acquire one of these jerseys because I think they look amazing. Now, details matter. This jersey has a rounded shoulder yoke. It's got stripes in red, white, and blue. Then there's the Capitals dome patch on the shoulder. And on the back hem, you've got the DC flag loop label. Guys, I'm not pumping your tires here. This thing is amazing. Inside the collar, a new word mark. This isn't just nostalgia. It's about branding, identity, and connecting the present team to its history. Really early take here. And I know they probably won't do it. They could just use that jersey to replace their home jersey. They really could. And like I said, there's got to be someone inside the Capitals organization that is going to unveil this at some point. Of course, I said this last year and the year before that, so it might be longer than any of us think. So the fans that love the Screaming Eagle are going to love this. They associate with a certain era of Caps hockey, and now younger fans get to see it in a fresh way. I think it is going to sell, and I think it's going to look good on the ice as well. And I think it says something about how the team wants to balance tradition with the current moment now, and kind of a reflection back to before. But as you take a look at it, I think that this thing looks absolutely amazing. And I think that you guys will like it too. So when it is released, make sure and go out and scoop it up. That, I have a bit of an honor back to, I have my Holtby jersey here. I got my Wilson here, and they're nice jerseys. And of course, I have my Ovechkin jersey around here as well. I would like at some point to add the new Capitals home jersey. For now, I'll have to settle for the Screaming Eagle jersey in red. But at some point, I think that, like I said, someone inside the Capitals organization really must be working on the new home jersey that they'll unveil at some point. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL as they have you covered 5 days a week, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.